Hey everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun, host of Vancouver Island Time and Community Talks daily at 4:30. I'm here today with Bettina Plendel of Bettina Plendel Financial Divorce Strategist, Lori Frank of Lori Frank Mediation, and Laurel Dietz of Alinea Legal Coach. How are you guys? Alinea Legal Coaching. Sorry, you guys.
Okay.
It's okay.
Say that 10 times.
Yeah.
So we're entering into phase 2, and which means that my daughter actually had one of her first kind of play dates with her friends today. How's it going with you guys and your families? What's the issue with your families? They enjoying it being open? Are you getting out? Less stress? More stress?
Well,
You go ahead, Bettina.
Okay. Well, I'm kind of very comfy. I became a homebody, to be quite honest. And here in the Parksville area, there will be soon a meeting it's an AGM of an organization I belong to, and it will be in person. And I was like, what? It feels, I love to go out, and typically I would go out 2-3 nights a week for business or personal reasons. But right now it's like, wow, should I go or should I stay? It's new.
Yeah.
I got so used to being home and on Zoom and having the comfort I really like, because it saves me so much time driving and all of that. Yeah, not too sure how I feel about it. I'm happy in a way. And I think we need that change, right? I mean, so we are not stuck.
Well, there's a lot of stress that's happened to families, which is why we started this, right? So I think the fact that they can get out now is maybe alleviating a bit of that stress. I know that I had 3 or 4 couples call me and saying they wanted to separate or divorce, and so I recommended counseling. Then I met with them. Are you guys finding that? Lori, how about you?
Yeah, I am finding people are that's come to the forefront for them, and they're considering what to do next. But I've had the same. I've had some people where they've got to that point where they think maybe separation is where they're going, but then they've gone into some counseling and decided to go that route for a little while. So that's good to hear. I'd been thinking about it the last few days, and I was thinking, for people who already pre-COVID had some things going on relationship-wise and were questioning and wondering, this has maybe answered some questions for them this period of time. But for those who, where things were going along well and this wasn't really something they were considering, I really caution those people to really take some time, before they make any drastic moves, because you wouldn't want to make some decisions based totally on the stress you've been under COVID, So
Right.
I think it's important for people to really take that time and think about what their next steps might be, and whether it's just a COVID related stress or if this is something that's been brewing for a long time.
I agree, Lori, to a certain extent, except for the fact that, it seems like even with, a lifting of some restrictions, we're still going to be dealing with a lot of this stress for the foreseeable future, for the next year to 2 years. So I think that maybe that's motivating some people too, is they think, this has just been unbearable. So, but you're right. Obviously, if you're going to be separating or divorcing, take a lot of time to consider it. I wouldn't be lying if I've had clients in the past divorce and separate, incur all that cost only to reconcile.
Okay.
Just do it once.
Yeah.
Making the right decision.
Sometimes you need to know who you don't want to be with, or make the decision not to be with somebody to know that you do want to be with them. And some people, just the emotional intelligence isn't there initially. And once they separate, they realize it's always easier to run away than it is to run to.
Yeah.
So what about people who aren't handling it well? What did Dr. Bonnie Henry say the other day? Lori, do you remember? She was talking about abuse, right?
Well, she was talking about how that was unfortunately a side effect of all of the restrictions in trying to keep people safe from a virus. They are also, inadvertently putting people in situations where they may be unsafe in their home. And so she was talking about how she's trying to, now we're in phase 2, try and find that balance for people, try and help those people who have found themselves in that situation, and sort of where do they go from here now that things are starting to open up a bit more.
So Laura, what do you think that people should do if they're encountering abuse?
Oh, well, I have actually some links for information, which I'll put in the live comments. But, first and foremost, reach out to someone for help if you are encountering, or if you've experienced any physical abuse, absolutely. And even if you're curious, like maybe, why do I always feel kind of rotten? When you're dealing with your partner, the most toxic and insidious violence is sometimes just mental and emotional abuse. And it always goes, the physical abuse often goes hand in hand. I'd say almost always goes hand in hand with the mental and emotional abuse. That's what comes beforehand. So I'm going to post some links in the live comments. Can I do that?
Yes, you can. Go to comments on the top right, and
I can't seem to post, but I can put it in the private chat, and maybe you can post it for me then.
Okay.
And so the first thing you're going to want to consider doing is reaching out to someone who might be able to help you to put together a safety plan to make sure that if you are in any physical safety, if there's any issues with any physical safety, that you are able to manage the situation before it escalates to a point where, on Salt Spring this past weekend, a woman was shot and killed by her husband, who she was in the process of leaving. And so nobody wants that. Nobody wants to see that ever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just heartbreaking. She was leaving what was already acknowledged, I guess, to be an abusive relationship. She unfortunately made the decision not to take a police officer with her to her home to gather her belongings. And I don't know that would have made a difference in the case, but I would have hoped that it did. Anyway, so that was something that I think amongst the legal community, we talk about these things, because I'm friends with prosecutors, I'm friends with people who work around in the policing sector, and we've been talking about how COVID how that's impacted calls about domestic violence to the police. There's anecdotal evidence that their calls are down, but then you talk to support services and shelters for women, support services for women, and they're saying their call volume has gone way up. So it's a real issue. It's been an issue since the beginning of the lockdown, and I guess my understanding is probably that if you're shut in a house with your someone who is abusive, you don't have, and they're not going to work anymore, you don't have that opportunity to get away that you might have had before. You don't have that break from the person that you needed to kind of recuperate. And, so I have dealt with a lot of women who are in physically violent relationships, or who have tried to leave them or have left them. And, but I also deal more frequently with women who are dealing with mental and emotional abuse in their relationship. And that is, again, something that a lot of women don't even realize is happening until you get something like COVID or a pandemic that adds that additional stressor to kind of escalate, and everything bubbles over. So if you're feeling like maybe that, have a look at those 2 links that I sent and get some more information about what abusive relationships look like, because it's not as straightforward as you would think. And then take some steps to help protect yourself.
I think also, just talking to Bettina here, is sometimes people give up control of the money, or they choose not to be informed about the money, and they have to start learning. And that's one reason why they don't step into a separation or divorce, because they don't know financially what it's going to be like, right? Is that an issue, Bettina?
Oh, absolutely. Many relationships hold together by the financial financials. First of all, maybe one party doesn't has an income at all, and you kind of in a position where you live maybe in a smaller community and you have a status quo. You can't just go to the shelter. How would that look like? So it's very hard, and I think people, they may say, suck up a lot, way too much, and until they break, right? And then they might even take it out on animals, or worse, the children or whoever, right? Because they need somewhere to air and pass it on, so to speak, physically. So, and I'm actually, when I get a phone call and I learn that there's abuse involved, it's really, I don't actually know what to do. So, but it's good that that you gave me some ideas, Laurel, what to say. And what I wanted to say, I just noticed on TV that there's now this commercial where the woman talks on FaceTime about a recipe, and then she makes that gesture, I think, right? Which is apparently the sign
code, yeah,
for abuse. I don't know. And yeah, it's on TV. So I'm like, wow, if they even make, if they bring it in the commercials, then it seems really to take over.
Yeah.
It's one of those things nobody really talks about or wants to share.
I think there was, I saw a post, I shared it a few months ago, of people going in for blood tests. And it said, both for men and women, if you're experiencing abuse, just write on the label your name in red. If you're okay, write it in black. And there was a red and black pen. And so then I think they had to give a pee sample or whatever. And then they write their name on it. And that was the key. And then what they do is they separate the partner from the other partner who's abusing them. Sad.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So,
and it's good to know that you should clarify what is abuse, right?
Yeah, it comes, and I often find the precursor to maybe physical violence is often where, and the women, we call it, amongst people who are working in this sort of industry trying to protect women, it is generally men abusing women. So it's violence against women. And the precursor is often the women are trying so hard to keep the family together that they don't even realize that they're doing that. They take on responsibility for things that they shouldn't be taking responsibility on. So they often feel that the problems in the family home are their fault. So that's why they don't realize that it's actually starts very much more subtly than just like being punched. It never starts with just a punch. Or whatever, a push or a shove. It starts long before that. And I think it starts with a lot of blaming and shaming and sort of grooming the partner or the children to feel poorly about themselves.
Yeah, it's insidious little comments. It's like chipping away, right?
Yeah, chipping away at self-confidence and at their freedoms and their ability to be independent. So that's why those links are good. And then the first step is always try to put together a safety plan, talk to a counselor, talk to a trusted friend, put together a safety plan so that if something does happen, you are able to get away or protect yourself or protect the kids. And there are links for or ideas for how kids can be involved in a safety plan because they can be at risk as well if there is violence. Even if it's not directed at the parent. But another resource is even just apply for legal aid. Legal aid does fund lawyers for people who don't have the resources if there's domestic violence. So get the help that you need. Reach out, and there will be, once you've made that initial call to a counselor or victim link or a lawyer, you will be connected with many more resources to help you.
Do you find it in mediation, Lori?
Yeah, in mediation, we're required to screen for violence, just like Laurel would in her position. So I have a lot of questions I go through with new clients to determine whether there has been any abuse or violence in the past, or in the present. For mediators, we need to, if mediation is going to work, we need to feel as though we can balance the power at the table. So if there's a huge imbalance and I don't feel like I'm able to balance that power, it's probably not a good referral for mediation. And so thinking about violence in that way, when I'm screening for violence, if it is quite recent or still occurring, that's likely not a good referral for mediation, because it would be difficult for me to ensure their safety.
Right.
Another one that's not a good referral is where there's already an existing protection order in place. So they may have something in place already where they're not allowed to be in contact with each other or have third parties connect them in that way. So that would be me. I can't be a go-between. So there are cases where I've worked with couples who there's been violence in the past, but it's been quite distant in the past. So I still, of course, take all of that into account. There's been an order in the past, but I've got to sort of weigh how much time has passed, where are they at now, where does that balance of power lie, and can I work with it or not? So, yeah.
So is spousal abuse a criminal offense?
Well, yes.
Yes. So
any sort of assault on anybody is an offense. So it doesn't matter who the person is. If you're shoving or laying your hands on someone without their consent, that's a criminal offense. Sorry. So I think you were going to go on with your question.
well, I just mean that. So if it is, so is there a registry or something for people who?
Yeah. So I think so there's advocates for women, and there's organizations such as the Ending Violence organization, which have lobbied for people who are abusive towards their intimate partners to be identified in some way in the criminal justice system. So if you are charged with an assault that's against your intimate partner or a family member, you will have a K on the end of your on the end of your court file number, and that indicates that it's domestic violence, which surprisingly has been something that was helpful to me when I was dealing with a court matter once, and had to pull up a criminal history on an opposing party, and all the court file numbers were ending in K. So that the judge was able to draw some inference from that, which was helpful to my client at the time.
So Bettina and I are both kind of and I guess Lori we're working with people who are cooperating for the most part.
Yes and no.
I find, like, for me, it's interesting because I may be dealing with two different parties. And so what I have to do is treat them as separate parties and just keep them both informed throughout the whole process, so that, and I say, okay, here's an offer on the property. Here's what, let me know what you think. And then I talk to that person, and then I talk to that person, then I come back and I usually get consensus, and then I go forward from there. So for the most part, it works out in real estate, because there has to be a high level of trust that I'm just going to look out for their best interest. It happens.
I think, just to say about the mediation negotiation, I wanted to get back to that registry piece, but, it's really, sometimes it can be really difficult to know what the balance of power is. just because you don't have that confidence. And even for me, sometimes I've had client meetings where I sit for 2 hours, we discuss everything under the sun, and then in the last 2 minutes, and this is an issue, and some horrific act comes out. I thought, oh my God, that changes everything that I've been 2 hours discussing with you. And so people are just, they might not be comfortable talking about things, and especially if they know that you're going to be speaking with the other party, that will change how they act or behave, and it's never apparent just on the face of things. So that's why I would always recommend to, I would be asking about, have you received any legal advice? Are you getting any extra support? Asking those roundabout questions maybe, to see sort of what other supports each party has in place. And just sorry, I just wanted to finish on the registry piece. There's also, if there has been an order made against someone that, like a no contact order of some sort, there is a registry called the Protection Order Registry, where all these things are recorded. So police can have access to them. The courts have access to those registries, to see if there's a history of that.
The public doesn't.
No, not easily.
Okay. So what do we do if we have a problem? I'm going to type it out. Step one. Well, it depends on the problem, but I would reach out to a counselor or a lawyer or even a friend or a family member and get more information.
Legal aid. You mentioned legal aid.
Legal aid, yeah, if you don't have money for a lawyer. But put together a safety plan. That's your immediate, to make sure that you're safe. Put together a safety plan for your safety. And then consider whether or not if you're ready to end the relationship, then maybe you can apply for protection orders in the family registry.
Sorry, what was the third one? Legal aid, counselor, legal aid.
Counselor, apply for legal aid, just a lawyer in general, or there's Victim Link. I think I closed that down.
And what was the last one that you just said?
Victim Link?
No, the one before that.
Legal aid, a lawyer, or
Get together. Get a plan together, right? A safety plan.
Oh yeah, put together a safety plan.
What does that mean?
So safety plan is like a concrete plan of action that you can take if you are in danger and you need to, so it's thinking ahead. So what are you going to do if you can't call the police? Or what are you going to do if you're on the phone with your friend? Maybe you're gonna have a code word with your family member that will, or for the kids that will know, get to safety, call the police. Maybe it'll be, like I'm going to, the situation is going to be different. I think for everybody, they're going to have different backup plans. Like, what am maybe I'll call my mother. Maybe I'll call the police, call this counselor. I'll get out of the house. I'll call the police. Is like, really? Yes.
Okay.
And so it'll be not just having a plan of action for yourself, but if notifying people around you potentially so that they can help you if you need it. There are guided pathways on that, one of those links I sent you, and I can send you another link where these online sort of portals can help you put together a safety plan for you. So I'll just send you another one.
Reminds me of lying in my bed at night thinking about what if there's a fire in the house? How are we going to get out of the house?
What would you do?
What would you do?
Yeah.
What are you
Disaster planning, right? So that you know what to do and you don't have to think about it. Because the thing is like when you're in the moment, your brain is going to freeze. And so that's where you have to know ahead of time, how am I going to deal with this?
Right.
So I think you have to be very clear with your kids that there's an issue and that they're aware of it, because I think it could be a case where you think you're being clear and you're not, or you're trying to be subtle, and so as a result, you're not, right?
I think, and I think the concern is always with I mean, if the violence is not directed at the kids, just witnessing the violence itself or witnessing the abuse is harmful to children. And Lori will know that is a ground on which like child protection authorities can get involved. So exposure to family violence. But the other thing is like the fear about kids is that they're going to intervene and try to protect their mom. And we don't really want that, because then the violence will be directed at them. And so there are strategies that you want to have your kids take, hide, get to a safe place, call the police.
Yeah.
So
Whatever.
yeah, the kids are a hard one, because it's hard to know how much to share with them in terms of their own mental well-being. If you're if the violence is directed at you and you're creating the safety plan, your plan definitely needs to include what will you do about the kids in that moment. But at the same time, sharing that plan with the kids may be very scary for them. And so it's a hard one, I think, because it's hard to know how much grown-up stuff do you share with them to keep them safe, and how much grown-up stuff do you not share with them to keep them safe, emotionally. And so that's a hard one, I find, with kids. So when you're saying being very explicit with them about things, you kind of need to walk a line around how explicit are you.
And I think, Lori, the other thing is it could put you in further danger if the kids just, don't understand, and then they just go and talk to dad about it, or
the whole it's complicated.
Well, it's like COVID-19. We were clear with our kids what was going on, but we were trying not to scare them. But it took a few days for it to get through my daughter's head. And she's like, "Can I get this? Can I?" And I'm like, "Honey, nothing's open. Like the world is shut down, and you're in a cocoon here. So you got to realize, like, this is serious." So I think you have to maybe talk to a counselor who can give you age appropriate strategies.
Yeah. But I would like to throw in there that, if you feel like, okay, we had an episode and he or she had sworn it's never going to happen again, and you really think that is because you love each other technically, that's that he or she will follow through with that. But don't. So what I want to throw in from the financial end, and I see that regardless of whether there's abuse or not, that many don't have their own account, and they don't have their own access to money, and everything is in the other person's name. So I would highly recommend, that generally is never a good idea, to be 100% depending on one person. But first thing would be get your own email address, get if you feel like it doesn't, counseling, whatever the person is doing, it doesn't help you and you need to get away at one point, you should think about that part as well, that you have some money somewhere, or at least a friend or a person who will help you out financially. As yes, you could couch surf or go to a shelter. You might not want to do that. So you need, one thing you need for all of this is money, unfortunately. So it would be critical to pay attention to that in a difficult situation.
100%. That's very good points, Bettina.
Yeah. No, and I tell everybody, their first question is, do you have your own email and your first bank account? And it's surprising how many don't have that. They share everything. I mean, we went over this a few times, but especially if you need to run, then that is step one, that your paycheck doesn't go into the joint account. Change that.
Okay.
I think in this day and age, everyone should have their own bank account. It's just like very, very basic part of being an independent adult. And,
Mhm.
you know,
And it's a bit controlling if somebody is insisting that they want to have your part of your bank or have access to your bank account.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
most of
it's
my
definitely
couples have joint accounts.
Yeah.
but it's definitely a sign, when I'm talking to people, when one person is talking about that kind of thing, that they don't have their own account, they have to ask their spouse for money every week for the groceries or for this. Like, it's always a permission-based relationship that they've got around their finances. That's a red flag for me, that there's maybe something more going on here. So it's surprising how many women still are unsure how all of that works, or even just things like
And then, by the way,
and yeah. I saw a question recently on a forum where someone was asking about their credit score and why their credit score wasn't registering, but they had a credit card, and it was determined that, you're the secondary person on that card. It's not your credit. And so just those kinds of things that people don't quite understand around finances and what that means for them, if they needed to be independent again or leave that person. Yeah, so I think that's an excellent point, is financial education is a huge missing piece it's, I think only just now being part of the curriculum in school to learn those basics. But
Interesting. You know,
certainly I knew in my 20s, I didn't know a lot about it. It's taken me a lot of time to sort this stuff out,
Yeah, I mean, I just reflect on, like, people who aren't even in abusive relationships or, problem relationships at all. They don't have that financial literacy.
Mhm.
I think the stages in your life where you learn it is when you work, if you're working, and then you're spending money and you save up to buy a house, and that's a huge component of the financial literacy, is the purchase of a home.
Absolutely. Mhm.
well,
How do you find?
when I met my husband, we consciously worked together to improve our credit score. That was a goal of mine because I was coming out of university and I wanted to make sure that we had good credit because I wanted to buy a house, because coming from Toronto, I mean, I never owned a house in Toronto. I was in my low 30s, 32, 34, and I just thought, this is so cheap here. So
Look at it now.
I want to buy 5.
but I was going to say, so I'll just end on how I think it's going to affect real estate, COVID-19, and how it's going to affect relationships. I think some people, because the rules are changing for lending right now, so I think they may be doing what Bettina was talking about and separating the house into upper and lower, like main house and suite, and having the kids go between each. I'm seeing people wanting houses with 2 living rooms so that they can get away from the parents or the kids. I'm seeing there's a move towards rural properties because people don't want to be so close together. And I'm seeing some people from Alberta wanting to move here because of the weather. And I mean, during the first third of this COVID-19, the weather was crappy everywhere else and we were in sunshine. So anyway, there's going to be some outfall from this.
So do you think that will go towards, like, what do you think an overall? I know I always want to know, overall, do you think that there's going to be sort of a decrease in housing prices, or is it again just going to be regional differences?
Well, as I said to my husband, there's no less money in the world. And what's going to affect housing prices? So CMHC said we're going to be talking about it on Wednesday, tomorrow, actually, about this with Jen Lowe. CMHC says they're not going to really be funding anybody with less than 20%. There's lots of rules that are going to be put in place. However, the 2 other major people who insure mortgages are not following suit, which is good. They're probably going to get more business out of it. I guess they're trying to get away from people who they consider to be risky. And what's called a conventional mortgage, they'll be going for that. And then what's happening so far is I actually put a video up the other day. It's 8 minutes. It's on my YouTube channel. And it talks about what happened with the market. So things were going, and then March, it was like, and then it kind of went flat. We went down to last year's prices in terms of housing. We went down 15% in terms of condos, and then it's coming back up. And right now we're seeing multiple offers again. And we're still lower on inventory, but the listings are coming. I see them all before they come out online because the more active realtors in the city do talk about what's coming up. So I try and get my clients into houses before the general public. It's worked a couple of times this year. So we've snagged a house before it's gone on MLS. And that's mainly just like having a realtor, the listing realtor being a really good communicator and me taking advantage of that.
That's just it.
So, but I think we're going to see 6 months worth of real estate happening in the next 3.
Wow.
That'll be interesting. Like, keep us posted on that, Jane.
Yeah.
So when are the mortgage rules changing?
The insurance, the people who insure mortgages, they're changing their rules. But why don't you tune in tomorrow?
Yes.
And if you want to hear about it, and if you want to come online, let me know, and you could talk to Jen as well, because it affects you in the financial side.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, you guys, that was a really good discussion.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm here today.
And everybody, so tomorrow we're going to have Jen Lowe. She's going to be talking to us about mortgages. And if you're interested in being a guest, please contact me. Just message me, Jane Johnston, through Facebook, or email me at briarhillgroup@gmail.com. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Bettina, Laurel, and Lori. It's been great chatting with you again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.